quick one. I just actually cut the grass. A few things I'm going to just talk about today. The name of that cop that I mentioned is Cook. Cook was the one that saw my friend in front of the store and spoke to him in a manner that is unbecoming of an officer. His name is Cook. Okay? I won't retell that story. I'm cutting the grass. A few things about like the code enforcement. Do you know, one time one of my homeless friends that I see now, but I dropped off, somebody gave him a mattress. Okay, rightfully so, they're not supposed to be living on the street. But I helped him move that mattress because it was given to him and I had a vehicle. You know, because I helped him move that mattress, somebody said, oh, illegal dumping, which was not illegal dumping. Do you know, I was put on probation for violation of the city ordinance of dumping. There was a man who dumped tires. He did prison time. I think he owned a junkyard. He did prison time. I can take you to cops' residences right now, and they are dumps. And people that live in those neighborhoods know. Markle's house is fine, but others. And every code violation you could imagine. Look, I've been in some of these houses. They would not pass any, but many of them are owned by officers in this city. They run code enforcement. So if you move to Corpus Christi, those that say, oh yes, they've got a lot of things going on. They came into this neighborhood and tagged. My house got tagged. I told you this one. Code violation. Mine was I didn't do like the weeds on the ground. And the threat on the tag is if you don't correct it in 10 days, we put a lien on your house. That's a citation that came from the Corpus Christi Police Department. And then all the stuff I know that these guys do. Now, you say, oh, John, we're still going to... Look, I can give you so many. I can give you many. And some people, there are residents that live on neighborhoods where officers live in town. And there were things that were done that the neighbors, I know people in that area, I won't give the names, but they said, oh, he did this. And then he did something else. And then they realized there were two things. The one was public, it made it to the news. They didn't know who did a certain illegal act. I'll just say this. It had to do with the dumping of an animal. And then everybody knew who did it. And it made people feel, wow, they roll here. It was an abuse and a thing that took place. And it made people think, and they know some of these people. And the normal thing is not like, wait, sir, you know, it's illegal, which the routine for a person is, shit, these guys are brazen in law breaking. Cops. So, I made sure I cut my grass because the Corpus Christi Police Department, they went through this neighborhood about a year ago. They tagged people for fences too high, 1 inch too high, tear it down, replace it in 10 days or we have a lien on your house. And yet I could take you to, so, you know Herod, which I talked about, you know John the Baptist, don't take lightly. If you're an officer of the law and you're even sleeping with a very young girl and you're an older officer, some with tremendous seniority, and you say, but it's not illegal for me to have sex with my girlfriend, John. I'm divorced or whatever. Let me say, you're breaking the law of God. You know, Scripture says, God will smite you, you whited wall. That's a scripture. That I taught that last week from the Apostle Paul. And the scripture says, God sees. And when John the Baptist was preaching, there were many people in John's day that were sleeping around. Jesus had mercy. But what got John's head chopped off? He said to Herod, "You're sleeping with your brother Philip's wife, and your sex sin, which is adultery, is seen in the sight of God." And I know many of these guys that are doing that on the department, they're laughing like, God can do nothing to me. That's what you think when you think, and I'll tell you, this particular one is so common, which is adultery. It's a little strange that some senior men in this department are doing that with very young girls. Their legal limit, but if you're 50-something and you got a legal 20-year-old on a regular basis, it's against the law of God, and it's inappropriate. And John the Baptist was saying to Herod, the corrupt fat king, he said, God sees. Paul said, I taught this recently in Acts, because the high priest had Paul slapped, and Paul's response was, God will smite you, you whited wall. You hypocrite, you who sit in the seat of the law. When I see the local news media, and I read that thing, how Judge Guy Williams had somewhat of a disagreement with the others that are somewhat in authority within this community. Some in that area, some in that area. They're sort of like a group of homegrown people. There is a judge sitting on the bench right now that I haven't seen this other friend in a few years. But he was a purchaser of methamphetamine. This judge is on the bench. And that's the inner group. Now, when Judge Tom Greenwell was shot, there is video of officers going into that courtroom. You know that. You know that. Why not have an investigation then? Okay? We had video of that. And so when the Kohler Times does all of their things about how wonderful we're going to build the economy, how about today we get code enforcement to go to I can take you to cops' rental houses that are falling apart. Matter of fact, one of my friends fell through the floor. Okay? And renting those. But you have the gall to come to this neighborhood. Turtle Cove is a very nice neighborhood. It used to be a gated community. And you code enforcement, you Markle and your group, you came out here and put this whole community on notice. And what was reported to me this week by someone that lives right on your block, Chief, is you this week were violating city ordinance, openly and brazenly. Okay? You were violating city ordinance this past week, openly and brazenly. I just heard Kevin Stowers on the radio, cutting the grass, listening to the news, talking about he's a spokesman for the CCPD and Crime Stoppers and all. His father used to be my city manager. Kevin Stowers, the cop is called Crook Stowers. So I corrected it. It was Cook who questioned my friend. I park at the park. I was there the other day. Officer Cook, because my friends are sitting there, when he gets off duty, he's not on duty, and he sits right where I park, actually, by the tennis courts. I park right there. But he sits off duty in his vehicle. He's off duty, because look, my guys, they know. They look. They see things. And then he goes around and he's got that whole thing that Tommy Nichols has, which is targeting and pursuing. So don't ever give the impression that your officers are out there Some are. You have so many code violations right now that everybody that I know, because they used to rent from Tommy Nichols, and some still rent from Tommy, every code violation in the book, and yet you went after Church Without Walls, because I read it on Facebook, on reporting him to the health department and everything else. Brother Ray does his ministry right down the street, okay? Maybe 10 blocks from where I live. It's a very nice setup. He used to go to the park, and they basically ran him out of the park. He set up a tent. But now at his property, and look, that's owned by his ministry, it's non-profit. So now they're going after health violation. And then you've got cops with not only the other things, but all the stuff I told you about. So God will smite you, you whited wall. Okay?